The good old early to mid-2000s, a renaissance period for the character action game genre, which also happens to be the time of its birth, with the legendary Devil May Cry series kicking things off, as it challenged you to go through the many bloodthirsty hordes of hell itself, and looking cool as hell while doing it, as you style on your foes. On the flip side of this coin, there was another legend that took things back to the 80s by having you take control of a efficient, deliberate, cold-blooded, razor-sharp assassin. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about the infamous Ninja Gaiden series. So buckle up on the Master Ninja Retrospective to find out what made Ninja Gaiden so fast, so visceral, yet so tough and rewarding, and its eventual downfall, and why we desperately need a Ninja Gaiden 4 right about now. Cue the music! Before I could get to this review proper, a little history lesson is needed on these games. Back in 1988, the original Ninja Gaiden arcade was released along with its NES version by Techmo, now known as Koei Techmo. The game was a pioneer back then for its fast-paced, high-octane action gameplay, along with an immense difficulty that made the game even harder than Castlevania and Mega Man respectively. Hell, it was the first game to tell a story through cutscenes, something that a lot of us take for granted nowadays. After the final NES release, it was 12 years since a new Ninja Gaiden has seen the light of day, until a legendary Tomonobu Itagaki came along to form Team Ninja and revive Ninja Gaiden for a new age, after establishing the Dead or Alive series. This game received 2 revisions, known as Ninja Gaiden Black and Sigma. Unfortunately, I do not have Ninja Gaiden Black, so in this review, I'll be addressing the Sigma release. But I am planning on getting a hold of Ninja Gaiden Black, since I have heard that it is the superior way to experience Ninja Gaiden. So, does Ninja Gaiden still hold up? Let's cut right into it. Right off the bat, the first thing that pops up when you boot up Ninja Gaiden Sigma is how gorgeous the game looks for a 2007 PS3 remaster of an original Xbox game. The graphical fidelity on display here shows very good environmental textures that are helped by the game's fantastic art style, that makes the areas and locations give off a unique character of their own, where Hayabusa Village looks like an isolated land that would be a breeding ground for training a deadly ninja, yet the place feels quite homey and peaceful, while Tehran, the main city that the game takes place in, is a closed-off Middle Eastern city that gives off very mysterious and unsettling vibes. With its many eerie-looking streets and city structures, from its uncharted underground ruins and ducts ripped straight from ancient Egyptian tombs that give the uninhabited city sort of an uncanny atmosphere of an estranged city that you won't want to find yourself in. One other strong aspect of the game's graphical presentation is the game's solid character models that exhibit a lot of fluid animations, where every overly exaggerated attack and mobility movement that Ryu pulls off is pulled off with such finesse and grace to where a lot of these fluid animations look as if they are genuinely achievable to someone who has reached peak human physical condition. Also, a lot of the enemy types are varied in the game, where you start off fighting run-of-the-mill shinobis and SWAT team members, to fighting more grotesque monstrosities known as fiends, while some look like they're straight from your own nightmares, while some just look a bit out of place. This aesthetic choice is reminding me of something, I just can't quite put my finger on it yet. Oh shit! Didn't know Itagaki would take the NES style this far. Some of the enemy designs are straight up taken from the NES way of designing and placing enemy types by just putting random monsters and human type enemies in different locations, where at times you can find random assortments of tough enemies that are out for your dragon ninja blood. The many adversaries, from standard foes to boss encounters that you do end up battling, do have a plethora of smooth animations up their sleeves, where the fiends do carry a lot of animalistic qualities, and the ninjas themselves are as skilled as Ryu is. One thing this game has going for it is its chilling OST to some of its locations that drive home the unsettling and otherworldly qualities of Tyron City. With some of its cracking melodies, here I'll give you a sample. On occasion, the game will pull a Devil May Cry on you by blasting some guitars and electronica in some intense battle situations. Just hear these tracks out. But these tunes are quite rare in this game. On the topic of sound, this game boasts some of the best sound effects I've ever heard in a video game, from a lot of the sword clangs and clashes, to the swooshes of the staff and nunchakus, along with the exertions and battle grunts that Ryu exhibits, along with the slashing sounds, that does a spectacular job of further selling the experience, along with helping sort out a lot of your own attacks and the enemy attacks included. In Ninja Gaiden, you take control of Ryu Hayabusa, a disciplined master ninja assassin with a serious, cold demeanor. The gameplay reflects every single aspect of those characteristics and then some. The combat of the game is a frantic hack and slasher with visceral, fast-paced action, similar to what you'd find in your Devil May Cries and God of Wars, where you move through different environments, battling a huge array of varying enemy types and boss gauntlets. But unlike DMC, the game doesn't want you looking flashy or flamboyant, despite having combos that can give that series a run for its money. But I digress. The game emphasizes practicality over style, any day of the week. Even though with enough practice you can play around with the enemies all you want. While playing Ninja Gaiden, you can't exactly cancel out of attacks like you are able to in DMC. In this game, pushing down the attack button is quite literally a no point of return commitment, where if you wind up attacking an enemy, you have to be 100% sure of landing the attack regardless of it hitting or missing your opponent. But do not think for a second that this slows down the combat. A lot of Ryu's moves are fast and seamless. Ninja Gaiden keeps a lot of its momentum moving at an accelerated pace, where you find yourself moving seamlessly from one attack to another. It's a quite fast-paced endeavor, where most of the time, you don't even feel the rigidity of the fighting system in place. So if you wind up messing up, you can take a split second to recover and turn the tables on an already difficult or losing battle. One way you can turn the tables is by using essence. Here's how it goes. When you kill something, the enemy would drop essence, Ryu absorbs yellow essence for currency, blue essence for health, and the red essence to fill up the magic gauge meter. You know, the standard action game stuff. Good shit so far. But here's the catch. If you hold down the heavy attack button long enough, Ryu will absorb all the available essence to charge up his ultimate technique that are unique to each weapon that you can pick up through each chapter, where Ryu just wails down on enemies for days or unleashes a massive screen clearing AoE move. This is badass moment to moment decision making right here, folks. The game gives you the decision to either just absorb the very little amount of essence or let the blue essence heal you like a little bitch, or you can charge it into a large all out super move that just mops the floor with everything and get rewarded with hella essence, where you can upgrade your weapons at a much faster rate. Or you could just cheaply grind away just like I did by chapter 13, but that's besides the point. But on the flip side, if you end up getting hit while charging up an ultimate technique, you'll lose a lot of the essence, and the blue essence won't really do much in healing your ass. So you have to be very precise on positioning, or you could just use the fire wheels Nimpo to get around the enemy attacks to get in the ultimate technique, since the enemy AI is on the bloodthirsty side of things. Speaking of which, one important design element that sticks out like a sore thumb is how difficult the game is right here. Ninja Gaiden Sigma is a game that pulls no punches. The enemy AI is ruthless and quite relentless every time you find yourself entering a new battle arena. Every single thing from the very basic ninja adversaries, right down to huge hulking behemoth of bosses, are trying to decimate your dragon ninja ass. Where hordes of bad guys just spawn in and out of nowhere looking for the closest opportunity to gang up on your ass, or blast grenades at your general direction, or whatever projectile they can chuck at you. And most of them hit like a truck, while bosses on the other hand can hit like an incoming freight train running at you with ludicrous speed. Some of these guys can take you out with minimum hits, so get ready to see the game over screen over and over and over again, yeah. This title did hold the moniker for the hardest video game ever made before Demon's Souls ever saw the light of day. But the game isn't impossible. The challenge presented here is a fair one. Let me explain. Despite the enemies that are able to easily mow down your own health bar, the title gives you many opportunities to get back up and remain in the fray, by giving you the ability to exploit a lot of the weaknesses of your opponents once they have missed a chance to hit you, or even by the block counterattack that you have at your own disposal with some weapons that is kind of similar to a Royal Guard release. And since Ryu is a cold calculating killing machine, you have to be in that same mindset to beat this thing. So you'll have to be mindful of a lot of the enemy attack patterns and your own positioning into the environment. And one pro tip, the wall running that I mentioned earlier is your second best friend next to the dodge mechanic. Not only is the wall running an extremely useful platforming tool, it's a very reliable tool to reposition yourself in combat. Say you want to get to an enemy's side and dodge a move of theirs while attacking simultaneously, the wall running lets you do that. You found yourself in a tight spot with a gang of fiends trying to give you a hard time, just run up the wall and use a heavy attack to snooker him away. So right there, this mechanic turns a lot of these square arenas into a fully three-dimensional space, where verticality is involved in a lot of the encounters you'll be having. One way that Ninja Gaiden allows you to face the challenge is by having you unlock various weapons with different varying properties. When you boot up Ninja Gaiden for the very first time, Ryu only has the Dragon Sword, a single-edged katana that is sort of your all-rounder weapon that carries a lot of the basic heavy and light attacks. And the thing is pretty manageable, sort of like your Rebellions and Blades of Chaos. Then you get the Twin Katanas, the weapon that I personally used throughout my entire playthrough. That is very useful for crowd control and quickly decimating enemies. And hey, they are a blast to use in fights. You also pick up the Lunar Staff, a large staff used for crowd control that really helps out in managing a lot of the relentless crowds that you find yourself butting heads with. This weapon also has some pretty stylish combo potential. Then you pick up the Vigorian Flail, a nunchaku weapon with sides attached at the end of each pole. A weapon that has a strong emphasis on speed and efficiency. You can even use this weapon to pull off a couple of stylish combos just like the Lunar. Hell, it even saved my ass a couple of times from these goddamn ghost fish that are just there to be a huge pain in my tuchus. Literally. But these other weapons pale in comparison to the UF, which is pretty much the maxed out wooden sword that dishes out tons of damage, especially when you're low in health. When this weapon looks like a heavyweight weapon, but it's kind of lightweight. With its aerial attacks and hard-hitting heavy attack properties that make crowd control and taking out enemies and yes, even bosses a rather cathartic experience. So yeah, in this ninja game with katanas, large great swords, nunchakus with knives attached to the ends of each club, the most overpowered weapon is a bat that a lot of parents would use to spank their kids with. So let's face it, The Dark Dragon Blade and Dragon Sword are kind of overhyped when shit like this exists. One other tool that NG gives you is the Ninpo gauge. Instead of the game giving you a rage mode where the protagonist turns into a demon, or where they have an aura of energy around their character models that heals you and buffs your attacks, instead Ninja Gaiden gives you a magic meter that you can use for screen clearing AoE elemental attacks that are uninterruptible, and while giving you one Ninpo spell that acts as the damage buff, which is the Fire Wheel's Ninpo. And in a game as fast-paced and frantic as this, these brief moments of downtime are kind of needed in all honesty. So with all that being said, the game does in fact give you the tools to fight like a ruthless super ninja. It's all a matter of being up for the challenge, or you could grind away till you max out the healing items and rebirth talismans. Right at chapter 13, like what my scrub ass did. Even if you do that, you still need to show some skill to get by some of the later bosses that know how to tank your shit if you're not careful. But there are a few gripes that I do have with NG. For starters, one of the things you'll be doing in this game is wrestling with the camera. At times in combat, the camera could just absolutely obstruct your view, and at times it can get stuck on certain obstacles where it can generate moments of not being able to see anything. One thing that could have solved this issue is by the implementation of a manual lock-on, or by aiming at your foes. It'll help the camera readjust itself to focus your attention on the target you are attacking to clear your field of vision, and to focus in on targets you're attacking to make moves like Flying Swallow much easier to pull off instead of the semi-auto lock that misdirects a lot of the directional inputs. One other problem I do have with the game are a lot of the cheap grab attacks some enemies and bosses do have that can catch you out of left field, that do drain your health quite a bit, where you can't do anything about it when you get caught, and it will happen to you when you very least expect it. But hey, there does exist a good workaround, which is dodging and not getting too greedy with a lot of the bosses. And one other complaint that I do have while playing this game is playing as the BDSM hunter Rachel. Her attacks and movements are much slower than Ryu's movements. Hell, you can't even wall run, which is the most important mechanic of the game, even though her attacks are much heavier than Ryu's. However, her sluggish movements make the combat much more of a drag to play, which was designed with speed in mind. So in short, when I play as Rachel, I automatically say something like, "I want Super Ninja Man!" One of the things you'll be doing in the game is solving various puzzles and labyrinths while exploring Tyron City. Don't let the chapter structure fool you in any way, shape, or form. The game has a semi-open world structure where at first the city feels like a very strange and foreign distant land, with many orthodox caves and tunnels where you'll be doing some immaculate backtracking to later find that the environment is vastly different from the last time you were there, while finding the many interconnected paths where by the end it becomes all too familiar. One thing that helps to encourage exploration are the golden scarabs. There are 50 of them scattered across the game world. You collect a certain quantity, bring it to the item shop, you get items and even weapons in exchange, like the Daiblaharo, the great sword mentioned from earlier, which is the game's heavy hitter with slow yet powerful moves, but with a lot of heavy hitting combos. And if you collect all 50 scarabs, you are rewarded with a fucking lightsaber in this ninja game. I mean, for real. You can't get any more badass than this. A lightsaber in a ninja game. It sure has a lot of the same moves as the Dragon Sword, but come on! How fucking rad is this shit right here? A lightsaber in a fucking ninja game. I mean, come on! How cool is this? So Ninja Gaiden Sigma is a challenging, nail-biting, and you might find yourself breaking a few controllers. But however, it's a very fun and rewarding game experience that brings back the best parts of the NES to 3D gaming. one of Ninja Gaiden's bigger weaknesses is the game's plot. Now, I have no problem with simplistic plots in action games like this. In fact, one of my favorite character action games, Devil May Cry 3, has a really simple plot. Yet, it's one of the best that the genre has ever seen, due to its complex and entertaining characters. However, with Ninja Gaiden, the plot is simple, yet the characters interacting in the world are kinda bland. Let me explain. The plot synopsis goes like this. One day, Ryu is training over at the Hayabusa village, sparring with his uncle Mirai, then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Hayabusa village gets raided by the Vigor Empire to jack the all-powerful Dark Dragon Blade. Ryu tries to save his clan, but is then killed off by their leader, the Darth Vader-looking Shogun Doku. Ryu resurrects himself from the dead, because ninjas could do that apparently. Then he boards an airship to head to the capital city of Taiwan, to bomb it to fucking shreds. And purging the world of evil fiendish spirits. So far, so good. Standard video game shit. The plot is there to set up and contextualize the gameplay, which is all fine and dandy, but as stated earlier, the character writing is the weakest thing in this game. For instance, take Ryu. He's pretty much your stereotypical archetype for the self-serious Stone Cold Shinobi who's a proficient killing machine that oozes stoicism. The problem lies with a lack of layers and human emotion with his own character. For example, take Dante. He's pretty much a archetype for the cool, wisecracking, cocky protagonist. But, in reality, the character had a lot of undertones of guilt, sadness, to the point where he felt like the dude was depressed on the inside. And you saw how Dante would react and behave in different ways that shattered this archetype. You saw him being sentimental, sad, happy, angry, which is why the dude is so memorable. He has human emotions under that Devil May Cry facade of his. And the same could be said for Kratos, Bayonetta minus the happy part for Kratos. He lost that a long ass time ago. Yeah. But with our main man Ryu, all what you get is just the serious, deadly ninja archetype without any real substance behind it. You only get one cutscene of Ryu expressing any sort of fear. After that cutscene is just business as usual for him. You don't see him trying to process what he's just been through. And I just wanted one scene of him evaluating the existence of fiends, even after he sees one getting killed by Rachel, which was his first time to see him anyways in the game. And you don't get to see a lot of sentimental moments from the dude either. You only get to see him on the sentimental side once, but that's just in one cutscene where he just wants to get the jewel for the dragon sword to unlock its true form. And that's all about it. From here, as for anger, he does abundantly make it clear that he's out for Doku's blood on several occasions. Which I like, but the rivalry doesn't have the same dynamic as a Dante and Virgil, or Raiden and Senator Armstrong, or a Cloud and Sephiroth, where you have clashing ideologies go head to head with each other, and one of the rivals fighting their damnedest to prove that their ideology is the superior one, even though Ninja Man is on the side of good while Samurai Vader is on the side of absolute evil. But the issue lies in that you don't really see what exactly is the motivation of Doku is for being on the dark side of things, but when it comes to Virgil, you end up knowing exactly the reason why he is literally raising a demonic tower in the middle of the city, and why he wants more demonic power at the cost of anything, which was because of his trauma that he felt as a child for not being able to protect his mother and brother, with that being a reason for him to believe that she abandoned him even though she didn't manage to find them in time. But with Doku, it's just, give me powerful evil sword to hand over to my master. All what I could say is that these two just look really fucking cool. End of story. As for Mirai on the other hand, the dude is a no-show for 90% of the game. He's only in it for the beginning as a boss fight to give further exposition on the legendary swords while foreshadowing that he is in fact the bad guy. He shows up at the end to reveal that he has been the one pulling the strings all along, to show that he actually wanted the blade all for himself. After all, which leads into one of the game's best boss encounters that tests your skills and knowledge from your own entire playthrough to get killed off at the end, this twist falls flat for two main reasons. 1. You don't see enough of Mirai quote-unquote helping Ryu uncover the whereabouts of Delku and the Dark Dragon Blade, only to reveal that Ryu was being used all along. So I ended up forgetting that he was even a character in the game. So I don't end up having the holy shit sort of reaction. So instead I have a okay? Guess he was the Dark Disciple dude in the background all along, I guess? As for Gamov, he's just henchman number 0505 who just follows Mirai around wherever he goes. Rachel, however, is quite well handled. Sort of like DMC3 Lady, but the light version, where she is trying to go after her sister Alma, who has turned into a fiend, where she feels it's her responsibility to free her soul by killing her. However, she comes so close to getting the job done, but she ends up hesitating due to seeing the sister that she was raised with. But again, these characters still need some serious work on how they're written, and it's a shame too, because the game has some well executed cutscenes that do show some human emotion, but it just cuts away at that, in just a split second, where it's as if nothing really happened. And that's why the tale being told here is a hollow one, despite the excellent aesthetics and setup. All in all, Ninja Gaiden Sigma is a very challenging yet rewarding video game experience that features an extremely fun and engaging combat system that includes a variety of different weapons with differing properties to experiment around with, that encompasses a quite punishing difficulty that can be overcome as long as you are willing to learn the systems and the enemy patterns, which is why I'll be awarding the game a double S rank. Despite the title's flaws and shortcomings, it is one of the best character action games on the market, on par with the legendary Devil May Cry series, with it having a great in-depth combat system that takes time to get used to, along with the immaculate level design and great movement options, plus the rough yet well-designed enemies, makes me recommend Ninja Gaiden Sigma highly to fans of character action games. So if you haven't picked up a Ninja Gaiden game, or if you do not own an Xbox, you can easily pick up Ninja Gaiden Sigma for the PlayStation 3, and right now you can download the Master Ninja Collection that includes Ninja Gaiden Sigma, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch, with all the design elements that focus on practicality, along with the punishing difficulty. Honestly, makes this game feel like one of the most human action games ever made. You truly feel like a mortal man at peak human physical condition, overcoming insurmountable odds and barely surviving by the edge of your teeth. And that is what makes this game all so special. After the cult following gained by Ninja Gaiden's return, fans were eagerly waiting for Ryu Hayabusa to make a comeback. So what they ended up getting on Xbox 360 was, no fucking way! I get to play one of the best ninja games ever made? I got a feeling this one is gonna be good. Catch you guys on the next episode of the Master Ninja Retrospective to find out why you need Vanilla Ninja Gaiden 2 in your collection. So this is your friendly neighborhood Ninja Gaiden 2 simp, the Devil Joe, signing out. Hey you guys, Devil Joe here, and I just want to say thank you for sticking around to the end of the video, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. I am really sorry for the long ass delay. Life just got in the way of me making things. But I'll just say this, I am back for real this time, and I ain't going nowhere. I'll be making more content for the channel. I'll be streaming on YouTube and Twitch, mainly more so on YouTube, since I've heard that it has become more streamer friendly. But hey, I'm just trying new things out. And yeah, if you're new here, why not hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon for more retrospectives, and pop a comment down below. And yeah, this is the Devil Joe signing out. Catch you on the next one.